unbans, right? Because when Wizards of the Coast talks about reevaluating the commander ban list, I'm thinking about cards that have been on there for really ridiculous reasons, or reasons that have been outlived through Fire design, Modern Horizon set design, and just commander in general. Playing around and working around and designing around commander format, the most popular format in Magic right now, has changed the way that we evaluate cards, look at cards, and what it means to have value. And I think a lot of that changes some of our opinions of the ban list. I think there's a lot of cards out there. I would say at least on average 25% of the list on the ban list for commander would surprise a lot of people. The average commander player, if you ask them about certain cards on that list, they would not think it's banned. And for many reasons, there's many cards that are not on the ban list that people think are banned. So their evaluation standards, especially for the average player, are just not that great, which is why I think this is going to be a good aspect of Wizards taking over the commander ban list. I am predicting unbans, and in this video I wanted to go over 5 cards that I think need to immediately come off the ban list because they just don't make any sense on there. Not that they would necessarily add exciting gameplay or make things worse because I'm an evil person. They just don't make any sense on there when other cards that may be similar, other win conditions that are similar, or just things that are worse exist in the format. We've used Rule 0 to fix so many things in the past, why not now? And before we head into the list, I want you to comment down below, what is your top unbanned pick on the commander ban list? Is it Primeval Titan? Are you a masochist? Is it Raphaelos? Is it just getting back your Jewel Lotus so that you can get your investment back? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below as we hop into the top 5. I will preface this that this list isn't in any particular order. It's just 5 cards that I think are important to come off. Now, whether or not there's more cards or, less cards than you believe from this list that should come off, that's a whole different thing. But this is the whole ban list off the Wizard site. 25 cards from Conspiracy are on here, 9 cards that play for the anti are on here, cards whose art, text, and name or combination thereof are racially or culturally offensive or banned in the format, which makes sense. That's kind of the standard messaging amongst a lot of the formats here. And then you get the whole list here. Cards like Lutri have their reasoning. Leovold was like a menace in the format. We have Hullbreacher on here, Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. Like, these are cards that may have more significance past like the recent unbannings, or bannings. And so with that, I want to hop right into number 1, the card that I think initially needs to get unbanned. First and foremost, Sylvan Primordial. Okay, this card, so you need to read this. You need to read this because this, honestly, this is so underwhelming. Green 5 for a creature avatar. So it's not like it avatar, honestly, not really that relevant of a creature type. First and foremost, it's a 6/8 with reach. Okay. When Sylvan Primordial enters, for each opponent, so we got 4 players in the pod, you pick 3, destroy target non-creature permanent that players control. So you can't destroy a creature, but you can destroy an artifact, enchantment, or a land. For each permanent destroyed this way, search your library for a force card and put that onto the battlefield tapped. Okay, so the reason why this is okay is it is just 1 permanent for each player. It is just 1 permanent for each player. You are at 7 mana already. So what that it ramps you? It's not like that player gets that force. You get the force. I get it. You get the force. So it's not like Ghost Quarters, they get their stuff. It's not like Pongify, they get a creature. You get the force. You ramp out. But you're already at 7 mana. For 7 mana, you destroy one of your opponent's lands and you ramp by 3. Come on. There's way better things to be doing at 7 mana. Way better things. Look, okay, let's compare this to Terastodon. Terastodon says when it enters, you may destroy up to 3 target non-creature permanents. Anyone's. It could be yours. It could be 1 person and you pick 3. And for each permanent, put into the graveyard this way. So it's got to be put into the graveyard, notably. So there's a couple more hoops here. If there's like an exile effect happening, a replacement effect, if it doesn't hit the graveyard, then the controller does not create a 3/3 green elfin creature token. So the reason why this is arguably better in some places is because you can target 1 person. The ramp isn't as valuable once you get to a certain amount of mana. That is my argument here. And it's better to destroy certain permanents so that you can get away certain lock pieces, and then you can then destroy your own things that are not valuable and make more creatures. You can just make a wider board. Arguably speaking, this 9/9 is just much better in that sense. And you can just destroy things without downside. As I mentioned, for each permanent that's put into the graveyard this way, you then create, its control creates a 3/3. So if you have a replacement effect that makes it so cards don't enter the graveyard, this does not matter. You could flicker this and then just destroy permanents over and over again, right? It's much better in that case. The ramp, again, as I'm arguing, isn't that relevant. Yes, you can do things like, okay, you know, look at all these forests that you can grab, right? Like you can grab any forest. It doesn't even say come in tapped, right? You can grab your Ketria Triumph, you can grab your Murmuring Boss, you can grab your Arctic Tree Line, you can grab it all. Oh, that's before we get to number 2. But what I would argue is this card is very underwhelming, especially at its cost. Now, if this costed 4, 5, yeah, much more powerful if it destroyed like 2 permanents, whatever. That's much more powerful. I would argue again at 7, that's like so far into the game. Like you need to spend so many resources, so many mana rocks, so much ramp in time just to get to something like that. That if you then destroy your opponent's stuff and then ramp out from there, I guess you're ahead. I just feel like there's other things that you could do for that mana cost that would put you equally as ahead in value, if not more, than just 3 lands. And I think the metric goes that more people that have more lands, right? Those are the people that have a higher chance of winning the game. They have access to more resources. They can pay more mana into their X spells, whatever it might be. It tends to stay true that the person with more mana, maybe not more lands, but just access to more mana is going to be the one to win the game. I just think this card is very underwhelming for what it does. Again, just going back to it, 7 mana, not really a relevant creature type, doesn't even have trample. It's a 6/8 with reach. Okay, block 1 of your flyers. You know, your forests come in. Oh, they do come into the battlefield tap. Sorry, I missed that. I missed that part. They do come into tap. But regardless, you ramp out. You don't get to do anything more for that turn. You've essentially spent 7 mana to destroy 3 lands, made an arch enemy out of yourself, and told everyone, let's focus on this player. What? This card sucks. This card sucks just in terms of politics and everything. Anyway, that's the first card that should come up. That card, not going to do much. There's saltier cards. Number 2, Sundering Titan. Okay, this one might be a little controversial. It might be a little controversial. I get it. It's colorless. It's a 7/10. You know, it's an artifact. You know, you can tutor for it. There's a lot of access that colors have to a card like this. When it enters or leaves the battlefield, enters or leaves, I think is the key part here. Choose a land of each basic land type, then destroy those lands. So you choose 1 forest, 1 swamp, 1, you know, mountain, like on and on for each one of those types, and you destroy one of those. So it's essentially like 5 target pieces of land destruction. Okay, that's not that bad because you have to work around this. This card being banned is primarily because of the leaves, right? So the flicker effects essentially double up. You have an ETB. If you were to ephemerate this, then, you know, like you hit it with something like an Armageddon, I would argue is much better than this because you destroy all lands. But if you were to ephemerate this, then the Titan leaving the field is going to destroy some lands. Re-entering is going to destroy some lands. It creates some panic there. But this goes along with the whole Armageddon piece, which is why I wanted to bring it up. Armageddon exists in the format. People don't play Armageddon because it's salty. Sundering Titan is the same way. People will not play Sundering Titan because it's just as salty. Armageddon is restricted. Armageddon is restricted to white. Giving people access to Sundering Titan gives more people access to land destruction. It doesn't mean there will be more land destruction. It might actually get commander players to build around land destruction. Build more decks with spells that keep their permanents indestructible, or the lands indestructible, or like causes to counter spells or whatever, interaction to stuff like this. There are answers to this, both in and out of the game, that stop this. There are worse cards in the format. Sundering Titan isn't that bad. It is one of the more powerful ones that are on the ban list. I will say that. I will agree. This is probably lowest on my list of cards to be unbanned. I wholeheartedly lowest on the list. I just think there's worse cards. It's very televised. Once you do it once, that's it. Everyone's gonna know you're the Sundering Titan player, and that's it. EDH is a social format. It's able to manage a lot of things by itself. This card inherently does it. It's not like Iona that just shuts off a player from playing the game. It can, especially against like a 5-color deck, but then after that, everyone kind of knows what's going on here. Sundering Titan doesn't seem like it's it. Number 3, Prophet of Kruphix. I was around for this. This was the first ban that I actually kind of was a part of. When I started playing Magic, when we started playing whatever the hell EDH that we were playing at the time, me and my friend group, Prophet of Kruphix was there. And I will wholeheartedly admit, I was the blue player. I was the bribery player. If you look back at the original ban article for this card, bribery and stealing this card were the primary reasons for why this card was banned. Because once everyone knew that someone was a Kruphix player, the game revolved around the Kruphix player. It was stealing the profit of Kruphix, bribering it, countering it, reanimating it. Everything revolved around the profit of Kruphix. And I get why. Untap all creatures and lands. Creatures and lands. You control during each other player's untap, and you get a Vidalcan Orrery. You may cast creature spells as though they had flash. Albeit it's not completely Vidalcan Orrery, it's just creature spells. But again, I think this card is perfectly fine to unban because we are past that point of people being able to bribery and steal your stuff. They just have more powerful things to do. They don't care about you untapping and doing all this nonsense. They will just destroy it because more people, I feel like, are playing single target removal. There's more removal in the format. There are better ways to deal with cards like this, and it is Simic. That is, I think, the big thing. It is more restrictive, more like less colors have access to this. Like if you're playing red, you need to be playing 3 colors to access this. If you're playing blue, you need to be playing 2, right? Like you have to, the other colors that you get into, it's more restrictive. Less players will be playing this, so it's more focused into certain decks. It's less ubiquitous, which I think is a plus for it being unbanned. Sundering Titan, big negative. You know, the One Ring is good in like any EDH deck. Profit of Kruphix limited to 2 colors at least. So I think that's a good balancing factor for it. Comparisons would be Seedborn Muse. This untaps all permanents you control. So it's not just lands and creatures, you untap your artifacts too. Arguably more powerful. Again, it's a 2/4, like gets past the bolt range, which, you know, may or may not matter in Commander. Of course, more so in Constructed. Same amount of mana cost, it's 5, but untaps all permanents and it's just 1 color. It's less restrictive. Any color playing green can play something like this. Just saying. Seedborn Muse doesn't really make a lot of sense. I don't think Vidalcan Orrery for just creatures is enough. You may cast creature spells as though they had, cast spells as though they had flash. Vidalcan Orrery allows you to cast sorceries, planeswalkers, artifacts, anything as though it had flash. Seedborn Muse just allows you to do it. Prophet of Kruphix just allows you to do it for creatures. I think there's a lot of limitations for this creature. We are past the point where the reasoning of this even still stands true. Unban this card. We have better places for it, right? Like it's limited. It's not going to be used by everyone. The Simic players are doing busted things already. They can just include this in there. They're doing other things. If you're playing against Simic and you're worried about Prophet of Kruphix, either their deck is bad or you are focused on the wrong thing. That's all I'm saying. Simic players, you know that you're doing enough busted things in the format. If your opponents are worried about Prophet of Kruphix, I don't know. It's probably a bad evaluation plan. But number 4, 4th card, Braids, Cabal, Minion. This is ridiculous. Is the argument for this the fact that like it's in the command zone? 4 mana, black, 2, so it's your commander. You could play it in your 99, which is even sillier. To be fair, that's even sillier because it's just harder to get without tutors. If it's in your command zone, you are playing mono black. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or a land. So it's a stacks piece. You're playing black, you have some reanimation, you have some recursion, so you're ideally able to take advantage of it more. Smokestacks is a legal card in this format. This is true prison. Smokestacks is true prison. The Smokestacks player that puts more counters on a Smokestacks, gets everyone to sacrifice their stuff. This is, you sacrifice a permanent for each card, like each counter on Smokestacks. This is like, Braids is like dumbed down Smokestacks. Just kill Braids. It's a 2/2. How hard is this to get rid of? It's a 2/2 with no protection or evasive maneuvers. Just kill this thing. I like, it blows my mind that this card, that shouldn't be a hot take. Like, it doesn't die to Doomblade, non-black creature, but it dies to like anything else, right? I don't understand how this card gets any value. This card, immediately as you present this as your commander, you are the arch enemy. People are going after you, right? So you have to build your deck in a way that kind of gets around that. So you play the prison, but it's 4 mana in mono black as a commander. That's actually like, it's actually pretty hard to get to. It's not Crick. You're not gonna be able to cheat this out that fast, right? And are you gonna play this in CDH? This sucks in CDH. What? Right? This card has to suck in CDH. It's barely gonna survive 1 round of the table. Heck, like 1 turn of the table. This thing dies on the spot. You spend 4 mana to cast this thing. No, absolutely not. Like, Smokestacks is there, and like, there's worse commanders. Atraxa. Atraxa is legal and you tell me Braids is banned? There's no balanced way to make Atraxa. You're making a bad deck or a busted deck. That's Atraxa. Grand Arbiter. Grand Arbiter is a deck in arguably more powerful colors. White has so much removal. Blue has so much counter magic. This is a prison card. Grand Arbiter is a legal commander, and Braids isn't. I don't see it. I don't see it. Honestly, you can't convince me on this one. You can try in the comment section. You can try and convince me that any of this is equivalent. Braids should be unbanned as a commander. And it's not an argument about as a commander, as a 99. The card should be unbanned. It should not be in the commander ban list. Number 5, the last card on this list. Okay, bear with me here, because I think a lot of people are going to get heated on this one. Okay, a lot of people I think are going to get heated on this one. A lot of weird opinions on Coalition Victory. Okay, walk through this with me. Wooburg and 3. 8 mana. Not great. Honestly, not great. Sorcery Speed. Folks, it's going downhill. You win the game if you control a land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. Jesus Christ. This is banned? Do you know how many hoops you have to jump through? This is 8 mana. Okay, sorcery speed, right? Okay, so the land clause, a land of each basic land type. Okay, you know, we got triomes now, a lot easier to meet. If you can pay Wooburg, chances are you got the lands. I'm gonna ignore the fact that maybe you have artifacts that generate colored mana sources. Okay, let's say you have the lands. 8 mana. 8 mana. At sorcery speed. Folks, it's not as the kids say, it's not giving. As the kids say, it's not giving. Sorcery speed at 8 mana to say you win the game, it does nothing beyond that. This card does nothing. This card is a dud. It does nothing. If you just spend 8 mana to do nothing if it gets countered, right? Let's say your opponent removes one of your creatures in response and you don't win. This is sorcery speed. A creature of each color. Let's say you have a 5-color creature. Okay, even easier, I'm gonna kill that. Let's say you have one creature of each color. Easier, I'm gonna kill one of them. All of a sudden you paid 8 mana to do nothing. There's no backup clause to this. This card does nothing if the condition is not met. I don't why? You cannot convince me this card should be on the ban list. You cannot. This is the worst ban on the ban list. Cold take. This card should have been unbanned so long ago. Let's compare it. Okay, Azor's Elecutors. At the beginning of your upkeep, blah, 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 you win the game. Okay, at the beginning of your upkeep, that's the key. Darksteel Reactor. When Darksteel Reactor has 20 or more charge counters on it, you win the game. But at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a charge counter on it. Okay. Upkeep, starting to be a clause, but Reactor, a little bit different because you can proliferate. Okay, you can put this in Atraxa, you can proliferate different ways. As soon as it had 20 or more counters on it, you win the game immediately. But there's some upkeep clause. Hellkite Tyrant. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. Darksteel Reactor, again, just trying to highlight this point, it doesn't really make sense. It probably should have been on the latter half of these 3. But again, beginning of your upkeep. So a lot of win conditions that you're going to see that say you win the game require you to meet a condition on your upkeep, right? For Darksteel Reactor, you have to run a couple more hoops. It is 20 counters that you have to proliferate into. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get a counter. So a lot of times, maybe you just upkeep in the last one. But again, it is an artifact. It is indestructible, notably. If you're thinking of a lot of cards that deal with artifacts, generally speaking, they're destroy all artifacts, destroy target artifact. There's a lot more exile in the format now, but again, it does matter that it's indestructible, especially when it comes to cards like the One Ring being generally unanswerable as well. What about Jace Wielder Mysteries? Mill is a pretty easy win condition, right? If you would draw a card while you have no cards in library, you win the game. Laboratory Maniac, same thing. I'm not even going to mention Thassa's Oracle. Pretty easy win condition. A lot easier, actually. It is so much easier to flip your whole library upside down into your graveyard or your exile. These cards aren't banned. Curious. Revel in Riches. Pretty well-known win condition, I would say. In black, notably. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a treasure token. Okay, you play this, slam a board wipe. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. Okay, all right. So similar to the clauses before, requires upkeep, right? Requires upkeep, but is a token generator in itself. It doesn't need to win you the game. This has a backup clause on it. It doesn't need you to win you the game. It's just going to create passive value in the creatures, or in the tokens that it's going to create. Passive value, just saying, just like the Jace Wielder of Mysteries, Lab Man a little bit simpler, but Jace also has some passive value in drawing you some cards, getting some players to mill someone. If you have some political alliance with someone that has a graveyard deck, you can mill them and you can draw a card. Just saying, a lot more variety. Liliana's Contract. This is great in any type of shapeshifter deck, by the way. Liliana the Contract, black 3. Whenever Liliana's Contract enters the battlefield, you draw 4 cards and you lose 4 life. Okay. Pretty solid. 5 mana, draw 4 cards, lose 4 life. Not bad. I'll take it. Honestly, I'll take it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 4 more demons with different names, you win the game. Okay, again, in shapeshifter decks, this card is an auto include. I have this in my Scarecrow deck, in my 5-color Scarecrow deck. 100%. This card is amazing. But again, it doesn't require you to win the game. It's just a 5 mana card. Even if you don't win the game, even if you don't get around to your upkeep, it just enters the battlefield, you draw 4 cards and lose 4 life. That's pretty, again, the backup clauses are important here. Coalition Victory. If you, like, Liliana's Contract, if they kill a demon, whatever, you drew 4 cards. That's pretty good. Coalition Victory, if they kill one of your creatures, you don't win the game. Ramsey's Assassin Lord. This card is insane. I actually just found out about this card today, doing research for this video. Death Touch, other assassins you control gain +1/+1. Whenever a player loses the game, if they're attacked this turn by an assassin you controlled, you win the game. That's sick. You can knock out one person and win the game. You don't even need to. You can attack that person with an assassin, even if they say they can't lose the game this turn. For some reason, a lot of the you can't lose the game this turn clause, though, they do say your opponents can't win the game, I will say. But if they had something that prevented all damage, the attack clause is still there. You can then still deal damage to them with like another black spell, something else. You can still deal damage to them. And if they lose, you still win the game. You just need to meet the attack clause. So there's a lot of fun things that you can do with a commander like this. Really cool commander, honestly. This commander is like sick. I kind of want to build around it. But again, clauses that have alternate ways to win. This one is stuck onto a commander, but even if you don't win the game, it's got Death Touch. It's a 4/4, and it's just an Anthem effect on all your assassins. You're playing Dimir. Pretty powerful color combination in commander anyway. Approach the Second Sun. Instant win condition, but requires you to cast it twice. Cast it twice. You gain 7 life. You spend 7 mana. You cast it twice. If it gets countered, like you cast it once, and it's televised. That's what I love about it. It's televised. Easier win condition to meet. I have this in my group hug deck where I create these situations where everyone's drawing a bunch of cards a turn. I approach the Second Sun, draw a bunch of cards, approach again, right? It's a thing. It's a thing. It happens. But again, Coalition Victory does not make any sense on the commander ban list. This card should not be on the commander ban list in any way, shape, or form. There are too many conditions to be met. It costs too much. It's at sorcery speed. It's ridiculous that people think this card can actually win games enough to the point where it needs to be banned.